I stood there, trying to put together the disturbing fragments of my surroundings. 5 children had just been sent down from the sky. Without resistance, they were being dragged away by the grizzled gangsters I had been forced to work with. The children are the merchandise. That's what Fang said. My head was hazy. The harsh sun was beating down on us. For a moment, all I could do was stare as the children were hauled away. Fang grasped 2 by the neck. The other man snatched up a pair by their arms. "Stay," commanded Fang, the dragon tattoo on the side of his face sneering at me. "We'll be back for her and you." Still holding on to his captives, he slinked into the thick brush of the crops and disappeared entirely. The other man did the same. After that, it was just me and the girl. The last of the children the gang had been sent to collect. She seemed entirely vacant. She squinted her eyes, adjusting to the light. That was the only movement she made. An oversized hospital gown was draped over her. It was bright out, but it was still cold. She must have been freezing. I wanted to help her, to keep her warm. There was something about her that drew me in. A connection, like she was family. I got the feeling that maybe she was from my past. Perhaps I knew her during all those years I forgot. But that wasn't possible. I took a step closer and she snapped out of whatever trance she was under. Her eyes widened in alarm. Hey, don't worry. I'm not gonna hurt you, I comforted. My name's Stacy. What's yours? The girl didn't respond. She definitely felt the same flicker of recognition, but she didn't say a word about it. There was a distant shriek. A child crying as it was being shoved into a vehicle. I'm not with them. They're bad people. Very bad. They're trying to take you kids away. I don't know why, but you're safe with me, kid. You got that? The kid didn't open her mouth. Hey, kiddo, you got that? Again, nothing. Okay, you're not much of a talker, are you? Bad things are happening. We need to go. Understand? I put my thumb up, hoping to get some sort of reaction. Nervously, the girl made the same gesture. I wasn't sure whether she was actually letting me know that she understood or if she was just copying me, but I took it for the former. I didn't have any time to wait around to see if it was the latter. I needed to get away from the gang if I was planning on staying in one piece, and if I could save the girl in the process, that would be a bonus. "Stacy," Fang cried from somewhere in the vast screen. "Grab the girl. Payment should be sent down soon." The kid looked at me. She clutched at her gown with fear. I knew instinctively what to do. I scooped her up and took off through the field. I ran as hard as I could. I soon felt the blood pulsing through my head. Each step sent dirt flying out behind me. I heard Fang crash through the crops after us. "Get back here, you fucking bitch!" he yelled as he drew a pistol from his belt. A bullet tore through the air, cutting down the shrubbery around me. More flew by, each getting dangerously closer. One stray shot exploded beneath my feet, sending me flying. The girl tumbled out of my grip. I could hear Fang gaining on us. To my surprise, the kid helped me back up to my feet. She brushed a rogue coil of hair from her face before jetting off, holding my hand tight. After a while, the barrage of bullets died down. For what felt like hours, it was just me and the kid, wandering aimlessly through the dense grass. I let her wear my coat. It fit her even worse than that mangy old gown she had on, but I didn't want her to catch a chill. "So, kid, where are you from?" She looked up at me. Her eyes gleamed with this curious intelligence, but she still didn't speak a word. "You're really not going to say a thing, are you?" I waited for a miraculous reply. She processed my words before smiling a large toothy grin and putting her thumb up, just as I had taught her. "You're a real smartass, you know that?" I chuckled. The dirt and shrub gave way to a tarmac road. I was sort of worried we were going to starve out in those fields. This discovery certainly came as a relief. Across the battered black strip of road was an equally beaten-up gas station. I had to double-check that it wasn't a mirage or something. I'm never this lucky. "Don't worry, this is good. If we play our cards right, this could be my ticket out of here and your ticket to a nice, cushy orphanage. Things are looking up." There was a map pinned to a notice board near the gas pumps. Turns out we were right on the border between China and Kazakhstan. I reckoned I'd probably have a better chance at escaping Fang and the rest of Shu's gang if I fled the country. Problem was, I didn't have any money or transport. I'd have to figure something out. I'm going into the shop. Hopefully I'll find a way to get us over the border. You just stay here, kid. Stay. I put my hands out to emphasize the point. Once again, she stuck her thumb up. I pushed open the shop door, setting off a little bell. A man in a blue suit pointed out his car to the aging cashier. His ride was a fancy old muscle car. I wouldn't mind owning something like that myself. "Hey," I called out. "Where are you driving to, friend?" "Kashgar," he answered. That was the complete wrong direction. Guess I wasn't hitching a ride with him. As he started bartering over some cigarettes, I had an idea. I stepped out of the shop. The kid went to follow me. I reiterated the stay gesture, and she stood in place. Her eyes followed me, trying to figure out my plan. I strolled over to the old muscle car and set to work. Using one of those scalpels I stole last night, I started slowly working the lock. This was an old trick. It came to me through muscle memory. Funny thing was, I couldn't remember having ever done anything like this. The man left the shop, a pack of cigarettes in hand. He was only 30 seconds or so from the car. I ducked out of sight and carried on. Soon I heard him talking. "Hey, kid, where are your parents? Hey, can you hear me? Should I call the police?" Maybe it wasn't Morality 101 to use a child as a distraction, but I was doing this to benefit both of us. With a click, the door opened. The key was left in the ignition. Rookie mistake. One twist and the car let loose a satisfying purr. The blue-suited guy looked up. "Hey, what the fuck are you doing?" "Sorry," I shouted as I kicked open the passenger side door. The man was fast, but the kid was faster. She bolted for me and practically flew into the car. I slammed the door back shut and sped off. The car's owner gave a chase for a while, but he was no match. With one final shout of, "Bring back my fucking car!" the man became little more than a dot in the rearview mirror. Then, after a few more seconds, he was out of sight entirely. I couldn't have known that just a few hours later that man would run into Fang at a bar and that he would tell him about the woman who stole his car and the strange little girl that was with her. Crossing over the border into Kazakhstan wasn't easy since neither of us had any sort of formal ID. I decided that the best course of action would be to go off-road. The engine choked as the green gave way to the desert sand. Luckily, she was a hell of a car, and soon we were back on the tarmac. For the first time in a while, I actually felt at peace. The kid stared out the window, her eyes fluttering on the brink of sleep. The ambers of the setting sun settled on her face. The road was entirely empty. Vast swatches of arid shrubland stretched out endlessly around us. I took a hand off the wheel and opened the glove box, carefully making sure not to disturb my passenger. I found a bunch of tapes. Old bootlegs. I picked one at random and popped it into the player, hoping it was something semi-decent. I was met with a very familiar voice. That distinctive mix of blues and jazz. It was Nina Simone. Even all the way out here, they still had Nina Simone. I looked back at the girl. There was certainly a resemblance. Kid, since you're not going to tell me your name, do you mind if I call you Nina? Just feels a bit patronizing if I keep calling you kid. That's all. She sleepily put her thumb up before closing her eyes and nodding off completely. By that point, I was feeling pretty tired too, so I set about trying to find somewhere to pull up for the night. In the end, I parked the car outside a little motel on the side of the road. As we pulled in, I saw one of the residents, an unusually thin man, peering through the blinds. I made sure to lock the doors. I leant back into the seat and tried to embrace as much comfort as I could. How the fuck did I get here? Only a few days ago, I was traveling the world trying to figure out the secrets of my past. Sure, it wasn't exactly a holiday, but it wasn't terrible either. Now look at me, trying to get to sleep in a stolen car whilst attempting to escape a Chinese gang I betrayed, and also find somewhere safe for a child who I saw literally fall from space. On that subject, I was still no closer to knowing who she was, where she was from, what the gang wanted with her and the other children, or why I felt that strange connection to her. I could still feel it even then as I was drifting into inevitable, exhausted sleep. The mumbling outside woke me up. It was dark now, but the unobstructed desert moon meant I could see perfectly. 2 figures, a man and a girl. The passenger seat was empty. Shit. He must have shown Nina how to unlock the door from the inside. At first, I thought he was one of the gangsters, but I was wrong. It was the thin man from the window. He was crouched down, talking to the girl. I slowly, silently opened my door and approached the man from behind. I drew the scalpel from my pocket. I got closer. Nina noticed me. I shook my head, hoping she'd realize I was telling her not to react to my presence. She clearly didn't get the memo. Nina stuck her thumb up at me. The man spun around. I reacted fast, bringing the scalpel across his face, leaving a long, gaping gash. The blood pooled, darkening the crevices of his facial features. He rose from his crouching position as if he was unharmed. He stared right into my eyes. His head twitched slightly and the blood began moving. It swam back up his face, returning to its rightful place within his head. Then his very skin began to move, remolding and restitching. The wound was gone. Not the slightest hint of a scar. What are you? Which planet are you from? I pointed the scalpel at him, uncomfortably aware that any cuts would probably just heal back up again. Look, I'm not here to hurt nobody, the thin man reasoned. Then why the hell are you talking to the kid? Because, well, she's like me, he stuttered. Like him? What was that supposed to mean? He took a step closer and I felt that connection again. It was the same strong instinct I experienced when I first saw Nina. What the fuck was going on? He craned his neck out to get a better view and carefully surveyed the surroundings. I think it's best if we carried out inside. Why the hell should I trust you? I put forward. You must have some idea about what she is. Do you really think the kid is safe out here in the open? You've got a point, but one wrong move and yeah, he interrupted. Yeah, I understand. Nina tugged on the hem of my shirt, trying to get my attention. She was telling me to have faith in him. We went with him to his motel room. His hands shook as he attempted to unlock the door. The key slipped from his grasp about 5 times. In the end, I had to do it for him. I think I understand what's going on here now, I stated as we entered the dingy little room. I knew you, didn't I? The first time I met either of you, I felt this weird connection. That's because before I lost all my memories, I knew you and the kid somehow. Didn't I? That's what you meant by, she's like me. She's also someone I knew. I'm right, aren't I? He lowered himself into a rugged leather seat. His feet brushed against a metal case hidden beneath the chair. He ran his skeletal fingers through his graying hair.
Maybe we should start with introductions. I am Rildar. I mean you no harm.
I'm Stacy Newman. You'll find out how much harm I mean you. Now explain.
The child isn't human.
Obviously, I interjected.
She is like me. Our species is called the Karashi.
I worked for an organization that dealt with aliens for years. Never heard the name Karashi.
You wouldn't have. We're hardly one of the greatest powers of the cosmos. Our planet has been unfortunate. Solar flares rendered most of our land barren. There were wars over resources. The wars were bad. Very bad. The weapons became too advanced for our own good. Takes a lot to kill a Karashi, you see, because of the healing and everything. Eventually, though, the war stopped.
I don't suppose they found the secret to world peace, did they?
Well, yes and no. War simply became too expensive. We had to rely on handouts from other worlds just to continue living. The debt racked up. When the other planets figured out that there was no way we'd ever be able to pay them back, they retaliated. Invasion force after invasion force arrived on our world, clambering to take any sort of repayment they could get. Most Karashi abandoned the planet. We spread out across the universe, ending up on backwater worlds like this one. No offense.
None taken. That still doesn't explain anything, though. How did you know she was a Karashi? Why do I feel that weird connection?
We Karashi have a strange bond. No one's 100% sure what it is. Some sort of psychic tether. We are drawn to each other. We can sense each other's presence. That's why I'm out here, trying to stay as far away from my kind as possible. But no matter how far I run, the call of the Karashi will catch up with you in the end. That's what my mother used to say.
So then I must be like you as well. I felt the call.
No,
Rildar denied, completely sure he was right.
You are not Karashi. You are something else entirely.
What? What am I?
No idea.
He shrugged. I felt rage crawling up my throat. No idea. This could be the answer. This could be why I've lost so much of my life, and you have no fucking idea?
Hey, look, I can't help not knowing something.
I can. If the call will draw me to other Karashi, I need to go out there and find them. Maybe they'll know more than you.
What about the kid?
She could stay with you. Safer that way, I decided.
No way. I told you I'm trying to stay as far away from the rest of my kind. Something weird is happening to the Karashi on Earth. I don't want any part of it.
Weird? Weird? Like what?
I don't know. I don't know anything that could help you. Take your kid and leave.
She's not mine. She's really not my responsibility. The only reason I'm here is to find out who I really am, and you just made that a hell of a lot more complicated.
That's not my problem. Go!
He raised his voice slightly. Not until I get the answers I need.
Told you, I don't have your answers.
My response was cut off by the telltale rumble of revving engines.
What the fuck is driving past at this time of the night?
Rildar asked. I got the feeling he wasn't expecting me to answer. He peered through his blinds, just as he did when we arrived. I moved Nina off my shoulder. She awoke briefly, but only so she could curl up into a more comfortable position. I joined Rildar at the window. 3 trucks had pulled up outside. I couldn't make out any faces, but a man in a blue suit was the first to get out. He pointed at the stolen muscle car. Shit. Rildar picked up my concern.
You know that guy?
Sorta. I stole his car. The man in the blue suit went to reclaim his vehicle. A woman who emerged from one of the trucks seemed to have other ideas. She pointed something at the man. It looked like a gun, but it wasn't. She pulled the trigger. He clutched at his chest, screaming in agony. In a violent rupture, his entire body shattered into thousands of tiny gemstones. I've seen that weapon before, I said grimly. So have I. His tone was just as bleak. My people created it. It applies immense pressure to its target, eventually resulting in carbon crystallization, one of the few ways you can kill a Karashi. Everyone down there is human, so who the hell are they? That's Shu and her gang. I thought I escaped them. They were kidnapping Karashi children. I don't know why. Strangely, that seemed to ease the man's anxieties. Okay, so they're after you and the kid. This doesn't involve me. I'd like to help, but I can't. This isn't my fight. Yes, it is, I imposed. Whoever the gang is working for obviously has an interest in the Karashi. I'm sure you'd be pretty valuable to them. I came out here because I don't want any trouble. The only reason I spoke to your kid was to make sure she wasn't a threat. I brought you up here and explained everything for that reason too. Trust me, I am not a fighter. I remembered his case beneath the chair. He might not have been a fighter, but he was still prepared to defend himself. I, however, was not. If I wanted to survive this, I had to get his help. I'm afraid you don't have a choice, Rildar. This is happening whether you like it or not. I suggest you arm yourself. He scowled at me before sliding the case out from under his seat. Inside was a pistol, a leftover from Kazakhstan's Soviet days. It was more of an antique than a weapon, but it would have to do. We were outmanned and outgunned. Nina was still curled up in the bed. I hoped to God that she was a deep sleeper. Rildar shakily loaded his gun. Come on then, he croaked. Let's get this over with. Shu stood directly facing the motel entrance, her hand in her pockets, her hair being pulled at by the desert winds. The rest of her boys, including Fang, were dotted around her. Each of them had a gun trained on the door. We stepped out, our footsteps echoing into the empty blue night. Hello, Stacy. We lost track of you. Good to see that you're still intact, Shu remarked cheerily. This woman had threatened to chop my fingers off the day before, and now she smiled at me with what actually seemed like genuine happiness. What can I do for you, Shu? I asked. We'd like the child back. Our benefactors wouldn't be happy if we lost any of the merchandise. I'm ashamed to say that for a fraction of a second, I did contemplate handing Nina over. No can do. Sorry, I responded before strolling back into the motel lobby and closing the door. You really think that's gonna work? Questioned Rildar. Maybe. I think I sent a pretty clear message. A single shot pierced through the door, pushing forth a cloud of splinters. A man in worn-out pajamas, the owner of the place, appeared from some distant room. What the fuck is that? He asked, visibly irate once he noticed the damage done to his property. This is just a bad dream, I said. Go back to bed. He was just about to kick off when a second bullet cascaded through the entrance, shattering one of the wall tiles. Okay, I'm going back to sleep, he announced as he scuttled off. A ravenous shower of gunfire then ate away the door entirely. The sound was like hearing the world's worst hailstorm at 1,000,000 decibels. I took Rildar down to the floor with me, but I couldn't protect him. Lead alloy burst through his chest, covering my shirt with blackish blood. I took the gun from his unmoving hand and fired blindly out of where the door had once been. It took a minute before there was any responding fire. They must have been changing position. The metallic scent of plasma was becoming unbearable. Rildar hoisted himself on the lobby's desk, his wounds having healed. Get out of here, I instructed. Go back to your room and look after Nina. I shouldn't have brought you down here. He He nodded and dashed down a corridor. The guy in the suit wouldn't have been killed if I hadn't have stolen his car. I didn't want any more innocent people dying because of me.
You still alive in there?
Shouted Fang from outside. I suppose that was supposed to be some sort of joke. Just about, I replied, crouching down at the corner of the doorframe. Let's be reasonable, okay? Offered Shu as if she hadn't just tried to blast me into oblivion. Hand over the child and we'll let you go. Not good enough. You'll just kill me anyway. There is something else you could offer me, though. Name it. Information. Tell me everything you know about your benefactors and their involvement with aliens. Then I'll hand the girl over. Fine, said Shu. I'm coming over to you, unarmed. My boys will stay outside, don't worry. I'll tell you everything. I pressed my back into the wall and checked I had enough ammo once I heard her start walking. I knew this was probably a trap, but I had to try. The benefactors, whoever they were, must have known a decent amount about the Karashi and what was happening to them on Earth. They might know why I have that strange connection, why I'm part of their call. They could be the answers to the questions about my past. Shu stepped inside. The pressure gun was in her hand. Of course, it was a fucking trap. I fired first, hoping to get the upper hand. The bullet barely scraped the front of her legs. I got up from my crouch and pointed the pistol directly at her skull. She smirked subtly and pulled the trigger of the pressure gun. The pistol crumpled in my hand. I was left with just a jagged hunk of steel. I tried to use the lump as a weapon, swinging for her face. She pulled the trigger once again, this time aiming down. Pain erupted from my left foot and I went straight to the floor. I tried to scramble back up, but my foot couldn't handle the weight. I collapsed right back down. She must have broken some bones. I told you if you betrayed me, I would slice off your fingers one by one. I intend to make good on that promise. Then she smiled. She fucking smiled again. Little girl, she shouted out into the motel corridors. Where are you, little girl? We have your friends. They want to say hello. Don't you want to see your friends, little girl? The door to Rildar's room opened slightly. I saw Nina's face poking through the gap. Rildar grabbed her and pulled her back while slamming the door closed again. There you are, she rejoiced. Hello, little girl. She took off like a panther, like a goddamn apex predator, racing down that corridor. I channeled my weight into my palms, my right foot, everywhere other than the bone she just crushed. I launched myself at Shu, desperately hoping to make contact. My shoulder met her hip. She went down. We both struggled, grasping and clutching. She took out the pressure gun and jammed it right in my eye. I slammed the mangled mess of iron into her wrist. Her grip loosened. I kicked the pressure gun away. She went for my face, clawing, gouging. I smashed the metal into the side of her head, which gave me enough time to hoist myself up and pin her down. Tell me everything, I demanded. Shu shook her head. I've been doing this for years. Do you really think you have any power over me? Tell me, I screamed again, bringing the metal down upon her face. She smiled with less teeth this time. Then she just started laughing. This horrible, gurgled laugh. I beat her with the lump of iron. I need answers. With every strike, the laugh grew weaker, but it never stopped. Until finally... Fine, she murmured. I'll tell you one thing. The benefactors, the people who have such interest in the alien children, they call themselves the clinic. What the hell does that mean? What the hell does that mean? I begged. The laughing returned. It was louder than before, more primal. I struck her again. The laughing stopped. I grabbed the pressure gun and hobbled over to the entrance. The men were stood around the car I stole. I think they were trying to find some sort of back entrance. I raised the gun and pressed it ever so slightly, just enough to excite a few particles in the car's fuel tank. The ensuing explosion and subsequent inferno swallowed up the men. Fang roared at me as he too was consumed by the flames. I put the pressure gun in my pocket and turned away. They were bad people, but that didn't make what I did any more pleasant. Rildar left his room and thrusted Nina into my chest.
Go!
He pleaded.
Please, just leave me alone.
He was sobbing, broken, but I was desperate. How can I leave? I haven't got any money, and I just blew up my car. He was disgusted by what I was implying. Truth be told, I was a little bit too. In the end, though, he gave in.
Fine, fucking fine.
He chucked his car keys at me and dumped the contents of his wallet on the floor. He gave Nina a terrified look and then returned defeatedly to his room. I shielded the girl's eyes as we walked through the chaos I just caused. I drove for hours without saying anything, but I sensed that Nina wanted some insight into what would come next. It had been a hell of a rough 2 days for her. The least she deserved was to know what the game plan was. Thing is, I didn't have one. I just said the best thing I could come up with. I think it's just gonna be me and you for a while, kid.